blesse mon cœur d'une langueur monotone. Je répète, blesse mon cœur d'une langueur monotone.
Hey everybody, Dutch Sense here. 3:07 a.m. Central Time on Sunday, October 12th, 2014. And I've got you on my website here. We're looking at a few screenshots that I took in regards to this 5.5 magnitude earthquake which struck off the shores of northwest Scotland and just a few miles away from an old, dormant, or I should say extinct volcano. And we shouldn't call it extinct anymore since it now experienced a 5.5 on the flank of the volcano. So if there's any question that it is a volcano, you can come in here and look at the Google Earth 360 imagery called Volcano Crater, and this shows the old weathered down volcano caldera. Now, there's been some debate, some question as to whether or not I made this earthquake event up myself. It was originally reported by the EMSC. I want to go ahead and thank one of my viewers here, Jan S., who provided a link to the rapid raw strong motion sensors, and you can see the earthquake is still marked here, even though the USGS, EMSC have all wiped it off the feeds. So here's the details. This also shows across. You can go ahead and look any one of these up. Let me just go ahead and do a search for Scotland earthquake. And of course you'll see my post, but here's the EMSC post right here. You can go ahead and pull the Google cache on that. I've already done that for you guys on my previous post, but you can see a lot of people talked about this over the last week, not just me. I want to go ahead and pull the data for the event though, okay? So we'll click on the earthquake here. Here it is, 5.5 magnitude. Here's the coordinates. You guys can go ahead and look these up and verify that that takes you to the same spot, but here it is on the map. And we're going to click waveforms. Okay, now this gives us the different stations that are around the region, and we'll go ahead and select all of them. Notice they all register 5.5 across multiple stations at different distances but in the same region. And while that's saving, we'll go ahead and open up the streams. And you can see the actual displacement data. Okay, so just move your mouse and cursor over these. I'll put a link down below this so you can do this yourself. You don't have to take my word for it. This is the event data. This is the time and date. Of course, that's all in universal time. That was just the first stream. Let's go to the second. Now, why am I showing this to you? This proves that the USGS and British Geological Survey and eventually the EMSC, most likely pressured into doing it, censor the data. For some reason or another, they're trying to prevent you from knowing about an earthquake happening in Scotland at 120 kilometers depth next to a dormant volcano, extinct, whatever you want to call it. Do we really believe all these stations malfunctioned? Do you really believe that this data just generated out of nowhere? I'd just like to know what series of circumstances could take place to cause all of these stations to show. Here, let's click on another one. You can click on any one of these. I'll put the link down below. You can see each station shows relatively different depending on the location of the station. Okay? You know, why would they censor it? I don't know. Could be because of the record activity happening around the planet. You can go compare Earthquake 3D, the feed, from 2011 when I'm showing earthquakes to now. We're talking at least double from where we were in 2011, 4 and 5.0 wise. This is just 4.0 and greater internationally. The West Pacific, really starting to spiral out of control. Japan starting to show hefty activity over the last couple days. Okay, look at the last 24 hours. Look at Japan here, really starting to spiral back up, and then right across the entire West Pacific, going over towards the Middle East. 4,000 or 5,000 miles of 4 and 5.0 earthquakes directly one right after the other over the last 48 hours. If you look in the United States, multiple 4.0 earthquakes here in the Midwest. You're not hearing much on the news about that, right? Not much news about the 3.4 in southern Colorado at the fracking operation, or the 3.5 at the base of Mount Rainier that just happened a few hours ago. The reason they're not telling you about the volcanic activity, the fracking activity, is because of the amount of unrest. They don't want people to panic. But once you know what's going on, you won't panic. If you understand that we're experiencing serious unrest around the planet stemming from the West Pacific, you won't panic when you start to see larger earthquakes approaching your area. Okay? If you live on the West Coast, you start to see the swarm activity. If they would tell you about it, you would know to prepare and be ready for a possible larger event in the near term because of the amount of activity already happening in the region. It's not rocket science to put those two together. When you see hefty activity happening, let's say along the West Coast, from British Columbia south to Salton Sea, this lets you know the area is in flux, and we need to watch the adjacent areas for movement time after time after time. We see movement happen in a specific region, and then the adjacent area follows up with a larger earthquake. So a series of smaller earthquakes followed by a larger earthquake in a nearby adjacent area, usually to the northwest of the area that's moved. So if you see all this here, it means we'll see a large earthquake up here, usually. Or over here in the West Pacific, you see a series of earthquakes happen here. We normally see it follow up with a larger earthquake to the northwest, here near Taiwan or South Japan. So you can see, as evidenced by the earthquakes over the last 48 hours, let me just go ahead and prove to you that these earthquakes here down to the southeast preceded the earthquake movement here to the northwest. So you start to see this really deep movement in the asthenosphere, followed by shallower movement along the edge of the plate. The asthenosphere is an area of semi-melt, which is located below the plate itself. The plate rests on top of, or floats on top of, however you want to call it, on top of this melted magma called the asthenosphere. And then it goes down further into depths of the earth, down all the way down to the mantle and to the core of the earth. And there's some debate as to what lies at the center of the earth. We won't get into that here. However, when you see the perturbed movement happening in the asthenosphere, followed by the shallower earthquakes to the northwest, it lets you know that the unrest deep down is still occurring. Be safe, guys. Much love.